So we got to talk about Governor Newsom, who I'm sure we can all guess that he's definitely going to probably make a play for presidency in 2028. And let me give him credit for one thing. Out of all the Democrats, that may potentially run for presidency in 2028, he is the only one that at least has a game plan, right? He has a strategy for how he's going about that. And obviously, starting the podcast and bringing conservatives on his podcast, he's looking more like he's trying to move more to the center, okay? Because let's be honest, when it comes to those on the right, he's not going to win us over, okay? Because we know a snake oil salesman when we see it, and that's exactly what he is. And then of course you got the Bill Maher type liberals, where I'm sure he'll get their votes. So more so, he's probably targeting the independents, right? He's trying to win them over. And me personally, I don't think it's going to work, because when it comes, regardless of what he's saying in these interviews where he's going, it's not about what you say. It's about, people look at what you've done. And when you look at his record when it comes to California, we know it's not good, right? And you're running a state that has the fifth largest GDP in the world, and you're running that to the ground. And people see that. So whatever you're saying about maybe you're flip-flopping on certain ideas, people see your record. People know what your ideas are, and you can't change that. Even though as much as he tries to say that he's no longer for that, but we see that, okay? And in this conversation with Bill Maher, it's interesting to see, to hear him speak and flip-flop on certain issues, and you're just like, you see how fake he is, right? But he's trying. Give him credit. He's trying hard. He's trying to move to the center, and he feels like that's the best chance that he has when it comes to if he decides to make the announcement that he's going to run in 2028. So let's hear this conversation, then I'll share my thoughts.
They've got to mature about this.
So what do you say to people who say, well, this sounds all very good, but Governor, you were the poster boy for a lot of this stuff. I see today the Trump administration they talked about, I don't know if this is true, but they talked about the fact that California had a rule that schools cannot be required to notify parents if their kids in school have changed their gender, their pronouns. That's the kind of thing, even though it doesn't affect a lot of people, that makes a lot of people go, well, you know what? That's the party without common sense. Now, if that's your state, how are you?
Well, I just disagree with that. I mean, the law was you would be fired. A teacher would be fired if a teacher did not report or snitch on a kid talking about their gender identity. I just think that was wrong. I think teachers should teach. I don't think they should be required to turn in kids. And by the way,
we're talking about their parents. How can you snitch? The idea of a snitch and a parent to me doesn't compute.
Well, I don't. But what is the job of a teacher? It's to teach. If Johnny's talking about some identity issue or some issue about liking someone of the same sex, is the teacher's job to then?
Yes, this is the teacher's job, right? This is the teacher. All right. Just to say that, using this thought that it's your job to teach. No, you are the caretaker for that child while they're in your care, right? Now, let's say if you saw a child and they came to your class and they had bruises on their arms, what are you going to do, right? You're going to talk to the authorities, probably. You're going to talk to your boss, and you might have a conversation with the parents, right? Because you want to make sure that child is okay at home, right? Now you reverse that. If a child is going through something in school, they're doing things that, their behavior is off, your job is to notify the parents because they want to know what's going on with their child, right? And I'm not a person, I don't have any children, right? But I would think that if something is going on with my child, if my son is out here kissing boys, or my daughter's kissing other girls, or their behavior is off, and I might not be aware of it, I would want to know what's going on in that school. And it's your responsibility to notify me, to talk to me, so we can have a discussion about what's going on, right? It's just simple common sense. You can't just use the excuse that, oh, my job is to teach, I'm just not going to say anything, because that's not going to fly, right? That's not good enough. It's your responsibility. That child is in your care, okay? So it's your responsibility to make sure that you're paying attention to what's going on. And if things seem off, I as a parent need to be notified. And I think a lot of parents would agree, like, yeah, I want to know what's going on with my child while they're at school, right? And just to say that, the teacher is, the job is to teach. No, that's just not enough, right? Because that's a low standard. You have a responsibility and a duty for that, to make sure that child is okay while that child is in your care, and you need to notify me as a parent for what's going on. So clearly, it's not a good enough answer.
and report that. By the way, in this law, the teacher can still do that, but they can't be fired if that's what it can't be fired if that's not what they do. And that's something I think is I just think that was fair, and I don't think that's inappropriate.
I've seen a lot of people lately talking about this 80-20 issue, and I think you are on the other side of this now, the side with the 80. 80 being 80% of the people in this country. Again, this is the issue of should biologically born men be able to compete in women's sports.
That's tough.
And, you know, I saw the polling here in California. They think you're a traitor for saying this.
Yeah.
You know, when those kind of people call you a traitor, there's a word for that, electable. If the Democrats, and 80% of the people are with you on this now.
Yeah.
If the Democrats can't get with 80, how are they going to do something when it's a 51-49?
No, look, I get it. And that's, look, and the other side weaponizes these issues. They dehumanize, they attack, they demean, and they've...
Like, what do you mean weaponize? Like, if the conservatives are seeing an issue that clearly 80% of the country, you know, are on board with, like, we disagree, like, we're on board, we're not weaponizing it, we're calling it out. Like, most Americans say men should not be playing in women's sports. That's a very common sense issue. So we're not weaponizing it, we're calling it out because clearly it doesn't make sense for that to happen. And most Americans would agree with that. So for you to say that you're weaponizing it, no, we're just calling out this idiocy that's going on, especially when it comes to the Democratic Party. Because these things just make absolutely no sense. So weaponizing, no, we're just calling out the lack of common sense that's going in your party, and that's pretty much it.
Weaponize this issue extraordinarily well. That said, on the fundamental question, is it fair? And I can give you example after example. Just in my home state, there was someone that won a triple jump by 8 feet.
Right.
All right. It's just, but it's, you know, serious. And you know, we had two people in the state champion. This broke my heart. 2 years ago, I'll never forget it. 18 months ago, we had two extraordinary athletes that got into the state finals. Trans athletes got in the state finals. The backlash was so bad they didn't even compete, and the other two people that were kicked out weren't able to compete. It was fundamentally unfair. We haven't been able to figure that out. So I express that as a fierce champion of LGBTQ rights,
yes,
and with a record that I don't have put up with anyone.
You have the cred.
He acts like he cares. Like he acts like he cares, but he really doesn't do anything about it, right? And that's the fakeness that we see. It's like you come off across, like in this interview, you come off across as you care about this issue, but you really don't. Like your record speaks for itself. You know that men shouldn't be playing in women's sports, yet you do nothing about it, right? And it breaks your heart. Like no one believes that. Well, no one on the right believes that, anyways. Okay, so I got one more video, and it's where Bill Maher is talking about how, you know, the amount of red tape that goes on with government. And we all know that when it comes to Democrats, they love, when it comes to these laws and they make it very difficult to get things done. And they do this intentionally because they want to make sure that, you know, you have to come to them for everything that you want to do in terms of, you know, getting things done. And all it does is make things very difficult to actually get things done. So let's hear what they got to say.
But let's talk about what's important. My roof.
Your roof.
My roof.
Is this the solar? Is this, we're back to the solar?
After the fire.
It's always about the solar.
After the fire.
Yes, Bill.
New roof. They suggested, you know, get the stuff that's not, okay. 2 inspections I needed to have. Why? It's my roof. If it falls on my head, that's my problem.
That's it?
That's it.
That's just a statement.
No, that's my question. Why do I need 2 inspections, which I have to pay for?
Yeah.
You were here last time. We talked about regulations. You said, oh, it's a completely new day.
Well, no, wait.
That's a quote from you. Completely new day.
Well, I mean,
you said you were working on it.
By the way, and last week you had Ezra Klein on, which was incredibly important. He wrote a book called Abundance, which really lays out a very condemning picture of liberal governance in this country and the fact that we are process-focused and not outcome-focused. And you're a demonstrable example of that as relates to what you've tried to do with your damn roof for the last 15 years. And so it's our job to eliminate as many of those thickets
How's that going, though?
as possible.
It's not going at all. See, this is the fakeness with Newsom, because he clearly he talks about, he understands, like, yeah, the liberal governance makes things very difficult, yet he does nothing about it. So this is what I'm talking about. It's like your actions speak louder than your words. Okay, you can say everything that sounds nice, but when I look at your actions, I look at your records with your own state. You got California, where many people want to be in terms of weather-wise, and there's just so much activity going on. However, you've run that state to the ground. And a big reason for that is because you got a lot of people on the far left, progressive, that are in control of this party. And maybe Gavin Newsom wants to move maybe he wants to move more to the center. However, the progressives, the far left, they have a stranglehold on the Democratic Party, and it's like the Democrats are afraid to lose that part of the party. They know if they move too far to the center, to the right, that they're going to lose them, and maybe they're afraid to do that. Regardless, you got to make a decision though. If you're going to do the right things, you got to make sure that you're strong enough to actually do what's necessary to make sure the country is running efficiently. And clearly, when you look at California, that's not the case, right? And Gavin Newsom, he just comes off as so fake and just untrustworthy. And people look at that and just say, yeah, I mean, obviously people on the right are just not going to, they see what he's doing. They don't care how many conservatives he brings on his podcast. We know how fake he is, because when Charlie Kirk went on there and he was talking about the whole Latinx thing, CNN exposed him for the lies. He said that no one in his administration ever talks like that, never even mentioned that term. And then CNN just put him on blast, and they've contradicted everything he said. So he's clearly fake. He's clearly a liar, and he's just obviously someone that shouldn't be trusted. But like I said, I think it's probably a smart move to move closer to the center. Putting these people on is at least it's a strategy, right? And when you're looking at all the Democrats, whoever they think is the face, whether it's AOC, Jasmine Crockett, he's the only one that seems to come up with a plan, a strategy on how to prepare himself for 2028. If he decides to run for president, he's the only one that seems to be making an actual move. And at least you gotta give him credit for that. But yeah, those are my thoughts. I'm interested to hear what you guys say. Make sure to leave a comment down below, hit the like button and share. And if you haven't done so, then make sure to subscribe. All right, guys, take care and have a good one. Later.